Well, it's official, October's here. Cold weather is upon us, I'm a year closer to death, and, most importantly, it's spooky season. So let's talk about some cool, spooky stuff that came out in May and July. I mean, I haven't been punctual so far, so I'm not going to start now. Like many of its 80s inspirations, Stranger Things is one of those works I frequently forget about due to the sheer size and scope of the modern media maelstrom. Alliteration go brr. But as soon as I remember it, I'm like, oh yeah, this thing rips. The cast is incredible, the production's top-notch, the motifs lifted from King, Amblin, and Carpenter are neat, and while the writing can be hit and miss as the show goes along, it's given me some of the best fun I've had watching a TV show. What's perhaps most agreed upon is how well the show uses music, from its moody, textural soundtrack of vintage analog synthesizers, to its selection of period radio hits that punctuate major story beats. On top of being one of the richest sources of meme fodder for the show, second only to Steve being best mom, this often overlooked part of filmmaking serves as a Hail Mary in delivering a nostalgic roller coaster that taps into your own memories and youth. The earliest moment in the show I can remember hitting me like a train is when Hawkins finds Will Byers' body in the lake, and they lay in that belting Peter Gabriel cover of Heroes.
Mike, come on, don't do this, man.
Mike, where are you going? Mike!
The strings in the song have this ghostly quality to them. The vocals sound like they're cutting through tears, and David Bowie's original lyrics about fighting in the face of heartbreak, no longer juxtaposed against the dance tones of the original, have a melancholy edge that goes perfectly with the character's sorrow and disillusionment. It makes the conclusion of that episode stunning. They immediately water it down when you find out it's a dummy in the water, but it's stunning and stays with you purely on the vibes. So much more so than when they do it again at the end of season 3. Just saying. Anyway though, there's been a handful of moments like this throughout the show, but much has been made about season 4's use of Running Up That Hill. Confession. I liked this song before it was cool. But of course, the first version I ever heard was off of the Chromatics album Night Drive, because I was based in drive-pilled and thought my overcompensating ass was Ryan Gosling as I drove back and forth to community college listening to synth pop in a 4Runner that I'd eventually crash. Oof. Sorry. Oversharing. Music does that to me, though. All this to say, I wasn't even aware this was a cover until I heard the original at work a few years back, and was introduced to the power of Kate Bush. This chick rules. And in tandem with the music video from the 80s, the song demonstrates her artistry in multiple mediums. Between this initial meeting with her music and now, I can acknowledge her as an absolute goddess of progressive pop, the progenitor of many a bad bitch in the genre, and equal to Bowie and Prince in her influence. Back to Stranger Things, when I caught wind of her song's use in the show, I was pretty amped. I had zero idea of how it was integrated, beyond it involving Mad Max, and as me and my partner started the season, I was a little underwhelmed. The track is primarily featured on a Walkman as Max wanders through the school grounds, still cut off from her friends due to the events of season 3. Eek. It's a mood. It's on brand with the rest of the show, and it conveys that she's not doing so hot.
Sorry.
But I didn't get why it was being blasted into the memosphere among fans. Then we got to episode 4, Dear Billy. For my money, this episode has one of the best sequences in the entire show. In many ways, it's a summation of what Stranger Things does best, using pop cultural elements from a bygone era to tell compellingly human stories that speak to all ages. Max is holding on to trauma and guilt from the death of her older brother Billy. Dacre supremacy, Dacre supremacy, fuck you for canceling Power Rangers 2, Dacre supremacy. The suffering makes her the perfect target for master villain Vecna. We learn the latter's role in the greater story later in the season, but at this stage of the narrative we know one thing. He preys on the insecurities and fears of his victims, prodding them into an emotional spiral before killing them. To put it bluntly, he's a depression monster. You don't have to be an English major to get what they're going for. And yet they use this simple framing to stage an emotionally powerful climax. Lucas, Dustin, and Steve desperately try to break Vecna's hold on her, pop her favorite song into the Walkman, and place the headphones on her head just in the nick of time. This opens a psychological doorway in Max's mind and triggers a clip show. In what I can only call the most anime American thing that isn't Avatar, we get a friendship montage of past episodes reminding Max and the viewer who she is, who she loves, and the future she has to lose should she succumb to oblivion. This eventually gives her the power to escape from Vecna's pool and reunite with her friends. Now in all of this, we don't simply get a replay of Kate Bush's song. The choice is made to enhance the track with new layers of instruments, which amps up an already phenomenal song into a dramatically explosive reflection of Max's inner struggle. When she finally, literally comes back down to earth and into the embrace of her friends, the sounds and visuals we've been bombarded with come to a decrescendo, as this towering track has been stripped all the way down to its basic components, that being its iconic opening riff, which has now been transposed to a simple piano.
I thought we lost you. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
As I got to the final tableau of this episode, and the frame faded to the credits, I was a blubbering mess. Supernatural bullshit aside, Netflix show aside, it's probably not as good as it used to be aside, the takeaway is this: the memories of what tethers this girl to the people she cares about, triggered by the art that moves her soul, saved her life. Comfort content, they call it. Yeah, it's very oh so comfortable in the way that it makes me remember better times and not want to give up and die. And in the hours I laid awake later that night, it hit me. Stuff like this, these moments of catharsis and revelation, are why pop art and entertainment exist. To spell out in bold, crystal clear writing what motivates us to push forward as human beings. Okay. As I wind down and wipe the snot from my nose, I'd like to throw some additional praise to the conclusion of this season. There's a reprise of the Kate Bush remix in the final battle with Vecna, and yeah, it's super cool. It gives us some incredible beats of badassery from Hopper and Nancy, but it doesn't quite reach those emotional heights that this first moment did, and of course, it didn't need to. What truly stood out to me, though, happens in the last moments of the finale. As we see the goosebumps on Will's neck, the theme we've come to know and love kicks in, but something's amiss. There's this tense droning that's not typically there when we hear it in the opening title, and by the time our heroes have left the forest to gaze upon the coming invasion of the Upside Down into our realm, those iconic arpeggiators have been all but overtaken by a full orchestral rendition of the theme that defines dread, as the menacing red bolts of lightning overtake the gloomy countryside. I love this, because along with the disbelief that falls over the principal characters who understand the earthquake's implications, it plays into the expanding scope of the narrative as a whole. Starting the show, there's an intimacy, a deliberate callback to childlike intrigue and wonder from the period. Even though there's plot threads involving adults and parents, a majority of the action centers around youth, sleuthing, scheming, and rebellion. All of it feels like their little secret, a mystery they get to solve while using that nerdy basement pastime as a guide.
The Demogorgon! We're in deep shit.
Getting into trouble, causing mischief, knowing a greater threat. Each season, the canvas widens little by little. The second gives us more action and locations, the third is like a frenetic summer blockbuster, and this season turned out to be a globe-trotting adventure where the major threads took place thousands of miles apart from each other. And yet through all of it, the concern was that of a select few, the ones who found out the truth and are trying to keep it on the down low. Like Teen Wolf, like Buffy, like Danny Phantom. Guys, I know we've almost died multiple times, but we can't let the grown-ups find out about the dangerous thing, and on top of that, the prom's tomorrow! Carry on running wayward son. But with every hurdle, every life lost, every blow to the safety of Hawkins, that naivete has been shipped away, and the merging of these two realms solidifies the fact that this is no longer a game to be played amongst friends. The strings and choir make the horror to come palpable and real, and now that the characters we've come to love are all in one place again, the stage is now set for what will likely be the Duffer Brothers' take on a grand-scale epic, an homage to the larger-than-life romances of our time. They are Star Wars, they are Lord of the Rings, or perhaps more fittingly, they're Stand. The end game is nigh, put away your toys, it's time to grow up. Or at least grow up more than your useless ass parents who just stare into oblivion itself, mouth agape. It's like, this is unacceptable. Where are my offspring? You non-contributing fuck. I really don't like Mike's dad. He's such a useless piece of shit.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not? Take us for all we're worth. Our children don't live here anymore. You didn't know that?
Seriously?
Am I done here?
Son of a bitch. You know, you're really no help at all. You know that?
Hey, language! I think at this point anything's possible.
Our children are not murderers, Ted.
Don't put words in my mouth. See, she does that. Twist my words. You're lucky you didn't get shot.
How's this gonna affect my nothing life? Right, drive around. You know, where are my kids at? I hope your asshole gets from the in the finale. Well, I hope you enjoyed these musings on this adored show. Like many of you, I'm anxious to see how they bring this thing to a close next year. As usual, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have a fun, spooky season this Halloween. Be sure to subscribe if this didn't.